A very good morning to all of you and greetings from IGI. On behalf of IGI, I welcome you all for this webinar on the world of Navratnas. My name is Chitra Rao and I am the senior instructor at IGI Mumbai. Okay, so today we will try to understand the 9 gemstones which are called as the Navratnas and try to understand their characteristics and their importance from a gemologist point of view. Okay. I request you all to keep yourselves on mute, and if you all have any questions, you can ask. Feel free to ask them at the end of the session. All right. So IGI School of Gemology is the ultimate source for discovering the breathtaking world of diamonds, gemstones, and jewelry. IGI also offers various courses in gemology and diamonds and jewelry designing in all locations pan-India. Coming to our topic today, which is the Navratnas. Okay, as you can see here in this picture, these are those 9 gemstones which are part of the Navratnas. Nav stands for 9 and Ratnas is to do with the gemstones. So Navratna is a Sanskrit word meaning 9 gems. The 9 gemstones are set in a particular arrangement according to, I think it is astrological importance. But as I said initially, we are going to address this in gemological aspects today. How to identify these stones, what are the typical colors, what are its imitations, and all of those aspects. But if you see, when we have the 9 gemstones in all, this is the setting that you would generally come across, the ruby in the center and the remaining 7 with their specific positions. Okay. Now the first one, when it comes to the Navratnas, the first one that we're going to talk about is about the ruby. Ruby is also called as Ratnaraj, king of gemstones. It is known to represent the sun. Indian name for ruby is Manik. Okay. Ruby, the best ones come from Burma. So I'm sure, all those who are in this field would have heard about Burma rubies sometime or the other. So it's not like every ruby that comes from Burma is of the best quality, but the best ones are known to come from Burma. The best color for a ruby, technically the best color is said to be pigeon blood red color. This color is seen in some of the best rubies that come from Burma. Okay, having said that, it's not like every ruby that comes from Burma would have this color. Okay, now what is this pigeon blood red color? It is more like a purplish red color. It's not pure red, it's a tinge of purplish red, or maybe sometimes a little bit of pink also. So rubies are never pure red. They always come with a secondary hue, which is maybe a purple or a pink with medium tone, not too dark, and intense to vivid saturation. That's what describes the pigeon blood red color. Now, which is the best color for ruby? That is again individual choice. When we are talking about the commercial aspect, anything that looks beautiful, with enough red is what we consider as the good color. Now, what is important here is to know whether your ruby is natural or synthetic. What is a synthetic ruby? Synthetic ruby is the one which is made in the laboratory. Okay, so the synthetic ruby also has the same properties as that of the natural. It will look very, very similar to your natural. So you have to be very careful when differentiating between natural and synthetic ruby. How would you differentiate it? It is only on the basis of inclusions. Inclusion is something that's there inside the stone. So in a natural stone, because natural stones take millions of years to form, they have a different inclusion pattern, which is visible under a microscope around 60x magnification. So you will be, when you study the inclusion pattern, you will know that, the natural stones would have a different inclusion pattern, and a synthetic stone, which is made in the laboratory, would have a different inclusion pattern. It's important to know the difference because there is a big price difference in the two. And also when it comes to astrology, people suggest that you use a natural ruby and not a man-made one. Now, not every red stone that you come across would be a ruby. There are many stones which look like ruby, so you have to be a little careful. And again, when it comes to pricing, ruby is the most highly priced gemstone when we talk of all other gemstones. So what are the other gemstones which look like ruby? We call them as simulants. So which are the simulants of ruby? Spinel is a very good simulant. In fact, before the testing, people thought spinel to be a ruby only. But nowadays, after testing, we know, all these minerals have different properties. Ruby has different properties. And also in terms of color, spinel is more like a pure red colored stone, unlike ruby. So spinel is one of the simulant. Garnets, there are some, purplish red looking garnets, which are called rhodolites, which look very similar to ruby. Another very common simulant that you come across is a dyed rose quartz. Rose quartz is a pink colored stone, which is dipped in a dye. And when, the dye concentration enters the stone, your stone looks red. And this red is very similar to your ruby red. So people use this also as a simulant. These are much, not actually ruby, so you have to be careful with them when you come across, a red stone. The next one in the list of the Navratnas is the diamond. Diamond is known to represent Venus, or I think it's called Shukra. Indian name for diamond is Hira. Diamond is one mineral which has one single element as its chemical composition. So diamond is 99.95% pure carbon. That 0.05% could be any other element like nitrogen or boron, which gives it a little different color. Sometimes you come across a yellow colored diamond or a blue colored diamond. That's because of the presence of these nitrogen or boron, which is present in very, very small quantities. Diamond is also the hardest substance known on Earth. It has a hardness of 10 on the Mohs scale, which means that is the hardest substance, and no other mineral can scratch a diamond. Diamond can scratch every other mineral, but no mineral can scratch a diamond. That is why even while cutting and polishing, a diamond powder only is used to cut and polish the diamonds. This is a picture of a rough diamond. This is how it would look when it is taken out of the mine. And after cutting and polishing and giving it those 57 facets, your diamond looks beautiful like this. This is called as the round brilliant cut. Again, when it comes to diamond, nowadays there are so many simulants of diamonds available in the market. Initially, maybe around 50-60 years ago, people were using a colorless sapphire as a simulant for diamond. But now, the most common simulant is cubic zirconia, which is also called as the American diamond in the market, or CZ. If you have heard about CZ or American diamond, this is nothing but cubic zirconia. This is a man-made stone, but when it is cut well, it looks very, very similar to your diamond. Then there is also another gemstone called synthetic moissanite, which also looks very similar to a diamond. Now, there are very certain simple tests to differentiate between a diamond and a simulant. And also in the market, there are very simple instruments like a pen available, which will help us differentiate between a diamond and a simulant. Okay? Now, the last one that we see here is synthetic diamond. For those who have heard about maybe a CVD diamond or a lab-grown diamond or a man-made diamond, that's nothing but a synthetic diamond. Just like how we spoke about a synthetic ruby, diamonds are also made in the laboratory by using, other forms of carbon like graphite, and they press it to make it a diamond. So a synthetic diamond would also have the same properties as that of a natural diamond. It looks as beautiful as your natural diamond, and visually it is next to impossible to differentiate a natural diamond from a synthetic diamond. The differentiation can be made only in the laboratory with advanced instrumentation, like Raman spectroscopy and all of those. But for other simulants like a colorless sapphire or a cubic zirconia or synthetic moissanite, with a little bit of a training, like for a trained eye, differentiate between a diamond and these simulants, even by using a 10x magnification. Next one in the list is pearl. Pearl is known to represent moon. Indian name for pearl is moti. Unlike ruby and diamond, pearl is an organic gemstone, which means it's formed in the body of pearl oyster. One request, can you please keep yourself on mute? So, how does the pearl form? Just give me a moment. So, how does a pearl form? Pearl forms when a sand particle or anything, a small seaweed or anything enters the pearl oyster accidentally when it is in water. It could be sea water or rivers or lakes. Can I please request you all to mute yourself, please? Okay, a pearl is formed when a sand particle or any tiny organism enters the animal accidentally, and that small particle becomes an irritant to the pearl oyster. So now, since the animal has to live with this irritant, what this animal does is it secretes a material called nacre. Yeah, this nacre material is secreted from within the body of the pearl oyster, and this nacre starts coating the irritant, that sand particle or any seaweed or any particle that has entered the animal. This nacre will start coating the irritant, and as long as that irritant is there in the body of the oyster, the nacre secretion continues and it keeps coating, and that is how the pearl is formed. And the longer the irritant remains in the body of the animal, the bigger your pearl becomes. So when you must have heard about natural pearls and cultured pearls. Now, whatever pearls you find in the market, most of them are cultured pearls. What is the difference between a natural pearl and a cultured pearl? For both the pearls, the process is the same. There is an irritant which enters the body of the animal, like how we mentioned here. And when the irritant is there, the animal secretes nacre and it starts coating the irritant. Now, in a natural pearl, all this happens in a natural habitat on its own. There is no human intervention. There is this huge body of water, which is an ocean. These animals are there. Accidentally the irritant goes, and then, the nacre secretion happens and the pearl is formed. When it happens on its own, this is when we call it a natural pearl. Of course, now it is very difficult to find a natural pearl. They're very, very rare. All the pearls that you find are the cultured pearls. Now, what is done in a cultured pearl is they pick up these pearl oysters in a, like a, pearl farm. They have a segregated water place in the water body. So they rear these oysters. And when the oysters are about 2.5 years old, they take it out of the water and surgically insert the irritant. Now, in natural conditions, the irritant enters accidentally. But in case of a cultured pearl, they surgically, make a small cut and insert the irritant, stitch it, and let the animal to recuperate. Okay. So in about 2 years' time, now this irritant is inserted, inside the body and stitched. So the animal has to live with the irritant. So it will start secreting nacre and it will form the pearl. So the pearl formation happens in the same way for natural and cultured pearls. The only difference is in that, irritant. In case of natural pearls, it enters the body of the animal naturally by an accident. In case of cultured pearl, it is, forcibly inserted into the body of the animal. Okay. So that is why, again, visually it is next to impossible to differentiate between a natural pearl and a cultured pearl. If they are made in the same animal, the nacre secretion would be the same. So, when you see externally, it will look the same. So the best test to differentiate between a natural pearl and a cultured pearl is X-rays. Okay, only when they're tested with X-rays, you will be able to differentiate between a natural and a cultured pearl. The next one in the list of Navratnas is the coral. Coral is known to represent Mars or Mangal Graha, and it is also known in India as Munga. Coral is synonymous with red or orange color. Now, this is also an organic gemstone. It is formed by a marine animal called polyp. That's the name of the animal. Now, this is how that animal looks. Very, very small animal. The size of the animal is about 5 mm in diameter. This is a very zoomed in picture. And these animals, if you see, have tentacles and they live in colonies. Hundreds and thousands of animals live together. Now, these are invertebrates. So to support themselves, they secrete, an exoskeleton. That's something on the outside of their body. That's why it's called as the exoskeleton. And this is how it would look. So these animals will be stuck on these exoskeleton, and after they have aged, this exoskeleton is what we use as corals. Okay, so it is not necessary that every coral that you get is of this fine red color. Corals can also be white, pink, orange, all of those colors. Nowadays, and also if you see these natural corals, since the animals are stuck on these, most of these rough coral would have a lot of pores in them. So when you cut and polish, you naturally you would see a lot of pores. So a lot of times these corals are given a coating of wax to fill up those pores. Also, if your rough has very large pores, then it cannot be used on its own. So what they do is they crush that material and put some bonding agent like a glue, something to bind it, and then rebond it. Okay, and then that can be made into whatever shape that is required, and that is called as a reconstructed coral. So you have a natural coral which looks something like this, not very shiny, doesn't have a very very shiny kind of a luster, and you would generally find some kind of pores on it. On the other hand, if it is a reconstructed coral, which is made from the natural material, but it is crushed and they add some kind of a glue and reconstruct it or rebond it, that is called as reconstructed coral, and that also can be made in any color. The sample that we've shown here is that of pink, but you also get red, orange, all of those colors. They look too good to be true. The color is very even, and it has a very nice shine, and they look too good to be true. Next one in the list is a Hessonite garnet. Now, Hessonite garnet is called Gomed in Indian markets, and it is known to represent Rahu. Okay, it's not one of those planets. Apart from Sun, Moon, and the few planets, there is also what we call as Rahu and Ketu. Hessonite garnet is known to represent Rahu, and Hessonite garnet is always this color, which is more like a honey color or an orangish brown or a brownish orange color. So this is the typical color of Hessonite garnet. So this garnet, when I say garnet comes in various colors. It comes in red colors, it comes in green colors. This particular garnet, which is orangish brown or brownish orange or honey color, this is called as the Hessonite garnet. So this sometimes you also find it in like a cinnamon color. Sri Lanka is a very well-known source for Hessonite garnet. A lot of Hessonite garnets coming from Sri Lanka. Now, they're also found in Madagascar, Burma, India, and Brazil, but Sri Lankan stones, and nowadays Madagascar Hessonites are quite popular. Hessonite is not a very, very expensive gemstone, but it has a lot of significance when it comes to the Navratna. The next one is the blue sapphire, which represents Saturn or Shani. Indian name for blue sapphire is Neelam. Again, in Indian markets, a lot of people do not prefer to, get involved with a blue sapphire just for the reason that it is associated with the planet Saturn or Shani. Blue sapphire also belongs to the same family of ruby. Okay, the chemical composition of a ruby and a blue sapphire is the same. They belong to the same group or same family or same species. So the chemical composition is aluminium oxide for both blue sapphire and ruby. Now, ruby has a small amount of chromium in it along with aluminium oxide, so it becomes red. So instead of chromium, if there is small amounts of iron and titanium, it becomes a blue colored stone, and that's when we call it a blue sapphire. Okay, so the hardness of both ruby and sapphire is really good, which is 9 on the Mohs scale. We spoke about the hardest material, which is diamond. So sapphire and ruby is only next to diamond, which is at 9 on the Mohs scale. So both will not get scratched very easily and is good to be worn on pieces of jewelry which are worn on a daily basis. Again, these blue sapphires are also synthesized, made in the laboratory. And again, synthetic sapphires look too good to be true, even color, no inclusions, perfect kind of stones. But whenever you look at a natural stone, natural sapphires generally have some kind of a color zoning where you could see, bands of color or some kind of inclusions. Again, these inclusions are best seen under a microscope to be able to differentiate between a natural and a synthetic sapphire. Now, it's not like synthetic stones would not have any inclusions. They do have inclusions, but the inclusion pattern is very different from what you see in a natural gemstone. There are a lot of blue colored gemstones which can be used as replacements or substitutes for a blue sapphire. Topaz is one of the most common simulants. Topaz is a gemstone which comes in various colors. You can have topaz which is colorless, yellow, blue. A blue topaz again is not, of course it does come in natural, it is found naturally, a blue topaz, but most of the blue topaz that you find in the market are because of treatment. So you get in different shades of blue. I think in the market you get what you call as a London blue or a Swiss blue, different names that they give for different shades of blue. So you get a topaz whose color is very similar to your, a nice dark blue sapphire. Then tanzanite is another beautiful blue colored stone which can be used as a simulant of sapphire. Tanzanite gets its name from the fact that it is found only in one mine in Tanzania. It's a beautiful blue colored stone. The only drawback of this stone is its hardness, which is quite less, which is about 6 to 6.5 when you compare it with sapphire, which is at 9. Iolite is another gemstone, which is again blue color, very similar to your sapphire. Kyanite, again another blue colored stone, which looks very similar to your blue sapphire. So these are some of the stones which can be used as a substitute for a blue sapphire. If you don't want to use a blue sapphire if it's just for color, then these are the stones that can be used as a substitute. The next one in the list is the cat's eye stone, and this one represents Ketu. I mentioned about Rahu and Ketu. For Rahu it is Gomed or Hezonite garnet, and for Ketu it is this cat's eye. Now, Indian name for this particular stone is Lasunia. Okay. Now, although we just say it is cat's eye is actually not the name of the stone. It is the name of the effect. If you see this stone, it is round with a dome or oval with a dome, and then you see a thin streak of light which goes around, and as you rock and tilt the stone, the streak also appears to move. Okay, so this effect is called cat's eye, and this cat's eye effect can be seen in different stones. This particular stone, which represents Ketu, is actually called chrysoberyl cat's eye. Chrysoberyl is the name of the stone, and cat's eye, because it shows the effect, that's the chrysoberyl cat's eye. So, if you come across this word cat's eye, that's just not the name of the stone, it's the name of the effect. So you have to be a little more specific and know that it is a chrysoberyl cat's eye. So this particular cat's eye is belonging to the species called Chrysoberyl which is called chrysoberyl cat's eye, or the other name for this is cymophame. That's the other name. Major source of chrysoberyl cat's eye is again Sri Lanka. You get good ones from Sri Lanka. They're also found in Brazil, China, India, and Zimbabwe. So this one this stone also has good hardness, which is about 8.5 on the Mohs scale. So you see it's got a good shine or luster on it also. Then, as I said, cat's eye is the name of the effect. So there are several stones which can show this cat's eye effect. Okay, so that's why you have to be careful with it. There is a stone called quartz which can show cat's eye. So that's called as the quartz cat's eye. Can you see that? Nice eye there. There is tourmaline which can also show cat's eye. So we call it a tourmaline cat's eye. Apatite which can show cat's eye. So it's an apatite cat's eye. So how do you differentiate between a chrysoberyl cat's eye and all of these? Chrysoberyl cat's eye has a very typical color, which is this yellowish green. And this eye that you see for chrysoberyl is very thin and sharp. Yeah, like the one that you see here. This has a very sharp, thin and sharp eye, which is generally not seen in the other simulants. Like a quartz would show a much thicker eye. Tourmaline would show a much distorted kind of an eye, not as clean as that one that you see for a chrysoberyl. Next one in the list is a yellow sapphire, which represents Jupiter or Guru. It's also known as the Guru stone. Indian name for yellow sapphire is Pukhraj. This is how it would look. A natural yellow sapphire is generally very light in yellow, like a lemony yellow. You would very rarely find like a very bright orangey yellow colored stone. Again, yellow sapphire, blue sapphire, ruby, all come under the same family. The only difference is in their coloring element, which gives it a different color. So hardness of yellow sapphire is also 9. So it is quite a sturdy stone. Doesn't get scratched very easily. Yellow sapphires are also synthesized. So you get a synthetic yellow sapphire, which again looks, too good to be true and, very brightly colored. Again, with the help of a microscope, you would be able to differentiate between a natural yellow sapphire and synthetic yellow sapphire, because as I already said, they have a difference in their inclusion pattern, which is very, very characteristic of a natural stone and a synthetic stone. Again, when it comes to simulants, there are several yellow stones that you can come across. Yellow topaz is one very common substitute for yellow sapphire. It looks very, very similar to your yellow sapphire. Then there is citrine, which is nothing but a yellow colored quartz, which also looks quite similar to your yellow sapphire. Then there is yellow tourmaline, which also looks like yellow sapphire. But all these, again, because they're different minerals, they have different properties, their hardness, the color, sometimes if you train your eye, even the yellows will be different for these different stones. So with that, you would be able to differentiate between a yellow sapphire and the simulants. The last one in the list is, of course, the emerald, which is known as Panna in Indian market. And emerald is known to represent Mercury or Buddha. Okay. Now, emerald is a very beautiful green colored stone. It is synonymous with green. Whenever you think of a green colored stone, you only think of green. Or even when you talk of color, we say, oh, it's an emerald green. So it's very synonymous with the green color. Emerald is beautiful, but it has a hardness of about 7.5, which is not bad, but it is a very brittle stone. It's not tough. So if you, by mistake drop the stone or, knock, if you're wearing a piece of jewelry and you knock it against something, there are great chances that your emerald might break. That's because a natural emerald has a lot of inclusions in them. They have a lot of fractures, they have a lot of liquid inclusions in them, which makes the stone brittle. Okay, so emeralds always have to be handled with care. Also, emeralds are generally, cut in this very special shape, which is called as the emerald cut. Okay, this is a kind of a rectangular shape where the corners are cut, Now, why the corners are cut is because, if the corners were sharp and if they were trying to put a prong while setting, many a times the stone would get damaged. The corners would break and it would damage the stone. So to prevent that, they started putting these corners, on the stone. And this, because it was designed for an emerald, it is called as an emerald cut. Now, any stone which is cut like this will still be called an emerald cut, but this was specially designed for an emerald. So that is about handling of emerald. Since emeralds are popular, again, you have, emeralds being synthesized in the laboratory. You have a synthetic emerald. A synthetic emerald, of course, will have fewer inclusions and will look too good to be true, much cleaner and, of a better color. Again, the inclusion pattern will help us to differentiate between a natural emerald and a synthetic emerald. Simulants of emerald, there are plenty of green stones you could find which look quite similar to your emerald. Tsavorite is a green colored garnet, which is now becoming very popular because it has a good green color, it has fewer inclusions, and it is much more tougher. It doesn't break very easily like your emerald. So people are preferring Tsavorites. Tourmaline, which is green, which is also called verdilite, can be used as a simulant of emerald. Then there is chrome diopside, which also looks like an emerald. Other simulants which are not so expensive are these aventurine quartz, green onyx, green sapphire, green fluorite. These are some of the stones which can be used as simulants. Visually also they look different, and of course inclusion, a microscope would be a best instrument to differentiate between an emerald and its simulants, because they all have a different inclusion pattern. Now, when we say Navratna, it means those 9 gemstones. So, many times these gemstones are also used individually on their own. Sometimes people just are, advised to wear maybe a yellow sapphire or a ruby, on specific fingers and all of that. But if these gemstones are, if all 9 gemstones are used together, and then there is always, a specific kind of a setting that is followed, a traditional arrangement of 9 gemstones, where ruby is always in the center since it represents the sun. Then there is diamond, pearl, coral, the gomid or hezonite, blue sapphire, the cat's eye, the chrysoberyl cat's eye, yellow sapphire, and the emerald. So this is the order that is always followed. So a ruby representing sun is always in the center, surrounded by all other gemstones in the clockwise order, as I just mentioned. Because the sun is the center of the solar system, its gem is positioned in the heart of the Navratnas, and all other planets are surrounding it. Nowadays, these Navratnas are also used in different kinds of jewelry, but they generally try to keep that arrangement intact. If you see here also, there is ruby and diamond, pearl, coral, hezonite, blue sapphire, cat's eye, yellow sapphire, and emerald. So wherever you see they try to keep the same arrangement, but because of their beautiful colors, they are also used in different kinds of jewelry, which are called as the Navratna jewelry. So how gemstones have an effect on an individual's life? As I said, we are taking a scientific approach as a gemologist, but these the rays from these gemstones are believed to mitigate harmful energies from the planets. Energies of these individual stones is believed to have psychological and physiological effects. Now, from what we have heard from other people, like when you wear a yellow sapphire, people say yellow color helps in concentration, so they say that students should be wearing a yellow colored stone. So each stone has its own story behind it, but what we want to promote is that when you're getting into a particular stone, it's always important that you get the right stone. So that's why we try to impart information on specific stones, so that it will help you in whatever way you would want to look at it. So that was about the Navratnas. Of course, because of the ongoing scenario, IGI has tried to share information and knowledge, but IGI also has online courses and on-campus courses for those who want to brush up their skills or want to know more about these gemstones and many more gemstones. So there are online courses in jewelry designing and workshops in diamond grading and ruby, emerald, sapphire. There are on-campus courses. As the lockdown is kind of being lifted, so our IGI offices are open now, and we are offering on-campus courses as well. So we still have a couple of minutes. So if anybody has any questions. Okay, there are a couple of questions in the chat box. Please, can you share some gemological identification tests to identify reconstructed coral? Okay, there is this question from Gaurav Agarwal. Reconstructed coral, as I said, looks too good to be true. And in a natural coral, there is some, the growth pattern is what we call as the wood grain structure. It's a very uneven kind of a growth pattern that you would see in a natural coral. But in a reconstructed coral, you would see those lines very parallel and neatly arranged, because of the fact that it is made in the laboratory. So visually, they look too good to be true. They have even color. They look, they have a good luster, and the growth pattern is even and perfect. Whereas in a natural one, the luster is dull or waxy. They have a lot of pores. The color is not even, and you would see uneven growth pattern, which is called as the wood grain effect. More information on kyanite. Kyanite is a blue colored gemstone, looks very similar to your blue sapphire. Not very, it is not like a pure blue colored stone. It's more of a peacock blue, like a mix of green in it. And it has varying hardness, much lesser than that of a sapphire. The term Lasunia refers to cat's eye, chrysoberyl, or any other cat's eye. Okay, Gaurav, the word Lasunia refers to only chrysoberyl cat's eye. Can peridot, chrome diopside, tourmaline, or tsavorite be used as substitutes of emerald? Yes. Peridot, of course, has a very different green color. It is more of a fluorescent yellowish green. So that can be easily differentiated on the basis of color. But chrome diopside, green tourmaline, tsavorite, they look quite similar to an emerald. So they can be substituted for an emerald. Okay, Sushmita writes, is carnelian the gomate stone? No, carnelian is not gomate. Carnelian is a variety of quartz. Okay, and gomate is garnet. Anybody with any more questions? Okay, I don't see any more questions here. So I thank you all for being part of this webinar today. And I hope this session has been informative and you've learned something from this webinar. And it was a pleasure, sharing the information and also answering your questions. Feel free to get in touch with IGI with any queries that you have. Our email is indiaeducation@igi.org, so you can share your views or your, if you have any questions or anything, and we will always get back to you on that one. Thank you and have a nice day.